Ex wouldn't pay me back, so I made her pay via the Bell bill. This was a few years ago now, but I find it fun to think about. Not sure if it belongs here. Started dating at 15, moved in together at 18, and within 6 months of living together, she cheated on me. She owed me something like $800 for 1 month's rent and for a vet bill I paid for. We still lived together for 6 months after we broke up, because despite me being able to move back home, she expected me to move out and also continue paying my portion of rent. It sucked, but it sucked less than paying for her to have her own place. The TV/internet bill was in her name. We had cable. The fact that she owed me money was documented via email. I very strategically sent many emails asking her to confirm that she was aware she owed me money and how much. I also asked if we could just deduct my portion of the cable bill from the debt she owed me. On the second last month of our lease, she was hounding me for my portion of the internet/cable bill, about $30. Wouldn't take no for an answer and threatened to not pay and have it turned off. Had another roommate in school who needed it, so I paid my part. By this time, she was staying with the man she cheated on me with, so she wasn't really around ever. For some reason, when she moved all her stuff out, she left the cable box and Wi-Fi router. I guess assuming because I was still paying for/using it. I brought my own TV to use after her, and her new boyfriend came in one day and took hers without saying anything, while I was actively watching it with a Tinder hookup. That was an awkward night. Edit. To be more clear, I mean it was her TV they came in and took. Like I brought in my own TV after they came to collect her TV. It was just awkward that I was actively watching her TV when they came to get it. I knew I was never getting my money back, so I had an idea. Buy every channel that exists, all extras I could buy just with the 4-digit PIN. Before this, I emailed her one last time saying something like, just to confirm, my portion of this month's bill will be subtracted from $X amount you owe to me, correct? And she agreed. These purchases began a week or two before I moved back in with my parents. I bought every channel individually, bought and rented movies, even started paying for pay-per-view porn because I thought it was hilarious. Kept track of everything I purchased and racked the bill up to almost exactly how much money she owed me, leaving a bit of space in case I miscalculated. About $750. When she got the bill, I was back with my parents. She came to my parents' house, bill in hand. My father answered the door. Meekly stated something like, BB Kingmaster spent so much on this bill, I can't afford it, to which my father responded, use the money you owe to pay for it, and closed the door on her. I was listening and out of sight. Whether or not she ended up having to pay, I'll never know, but it felt good to do at the time. Make inappropriate false accusations to HR? You get fired instead. I work in semiconductor, and recently a female employee, F22, was moved to my M34 area and I had to train her. Now it's important for me to inform that it's a well-known fact at work that this girl is flirty, inappropriate, and she has gotten several men fired and reported just as many to HR. Her file must be thick. To the story. As soon as she was moved to my area, I could see that she was shy with me and a little flirty. As the days went by, she became more and more flirtatious and very hands-on, touchy-feely type. She would even say how cute she thinks I am, etc. I admit I played back with her, but never in an inappropriate manner. She added me on social media, and we exchanged info as she had expressed interest in hanging out. I guess one weekend she saw on social media I had gone to the park one day, and when I came back to work the following week, she was acting very odd and angry. Turns out she was upset I never called her and was acting very immature and overall just crazy. Someone would get that mad considering we never officially made plans or anything. A few weeks later, the same flirty behavior was still going on. I ended up missing a few days of work due to a bad stomach bug. I couldn't eat or drink anything, so I missed some work. After a couple days of being in bed, I felt well enough to look at my phone and I had a ton of notifications. A few from her being so angry I left her on read, and she had tried to get a hold of me multiple times with no success. The following Monday I got to work, and of course she was angry, but I just ignored her and kept working. Shortly after, the manager came up to me and told me to get my stuff because I was being moved. I kind of figured this had something to do with the girl, but wasn't sure, so I asked. Turns out she told them that I have asked her out repeatedly, and she has turned me down every time, and that I've been mean to her ever since she turned me down, and that I refused to help her with work. All very untrue. This was escalated to HR, and soon after I get a call from HR explaining there is an open investigation on me for what the girl had said. I denied all accusations and told them I had no problem sending them screenshots proving this a lie. So, I sent them all the messages with her calling me honey, telling me I'm cute, and 3 days before her complaint in one of her last messages to me, she had asked me to hang out when we have time off together. The last message I sent to HR was a message from the girl apologizing for slapping me in the face at work twice. She did this in an immature flirting type of way, but I was pretty mad and never said anything, just kept the texts. After she made up lies trying to get me fired because I left her on read for too long, I figured HR would like to see a message from a girl who is admitting to assaulting someone at work unprovoked. Needless to say, a couple weeks after the investigation began, she was fired, and all was right in my world again. Obnoxious girls get their food stolen while I sit back and watch. So my boyfriend and I went to the beach a couple of weeks ago, and considering it was midweek, it was pretty empty. So we walk for a bit, find a nice quiet spot, and set up our towels. Honestly, there were like no one on the beach. 10 minutes into tanning, these 3 girls walk up and set their stuff right next to us. The entire beach is still empty. They set up their things and begin chatting extremely loudly about the most unbearably obnoxious things. I don't understand why he wouldn't like me. I mean, I'm ticking all the boxes. Not to mention they're eating and leaving their rubbish on the beach. So after about an hour of listening to their bullshit conversation and cackling laughter, I'm kinda getting pissed. I mean, we walked this far down the beach to get away from the occasional couple of people around. I keep my cool, and I notice they all go for a swim, leaving their food out as they do. About 5 minutes into their swim, I notice a couple of birds, crows, come along and start picking open their Pringle container. Now, for those who don't know, crows are very smart birds. Together, they help each other eat the entire contents of the container and begin to rummage around the other food. At this point, the girls notice and are trying to call out to us to scare off the birds. My petty revenge part? I pretend I can't hear them and roll onto my stomach to continue tanning. By the time the girls got out, all of their food was gone. They were pretty grumpy, so they packed up and left. And I finally got to enjoy the peace and quiet I had originally hoped for. I stopped a kid playing Fortnite. I'm a tradesman and I was working on the power at a house when I asked the man who owned the place if he could turn off any TVs or computers that were on for 10 minutes while I worked on the PowerPoints. He went and told his sons to turn off the TV while I worked on the power. Not 30 seconds later, this little 12-year-old brat came marching up to me and demanded I restore the power as he was in the middle of a very important Fortnite game. His dad didn't even flinch at this, like it was a normal thing for a kid to say. So I told the kid very politely that if he gave me 5 or so minutes, I'd have it back on for him. Not 2 minutes later, he again marched up to me and demanded an update and asked what was taking so long. Again, I was polite and told him that I wouldn't be long. At this point, I was pretty annoyed at both the kid and dad, so when I had finished working on the power, instead of turning back on straight away, I left it off for another 10 to 15 minutes while I cleaned up just to spite the kid. Petty but worth it. Friend's evil stepmother dies, and what is done with life insurance is awesome. I have a dear friend, Shannon, fake name. In her early 60s, and as a toddler her parents divorced and dad remarried a petty woman, Cruella, who wanted him to cut ties with Shannon. They still managed a relationship, but not as close as it should have been during her years growing up. Shannon married young and struggled a lot, but raised her 3 girls into young women who all now have families of their own. And Shannon is now a proud grandmother and great-grandmother. But back to Cruella. When Shannon was still in her 20s and had left her first husband, a cheater and criminal, for her own sanity and the safety of her and her daughters, her dad had told her to come home and he'd help her with a place to stay. Upon arrival, Cruella, she controlled finances, said she was unwelcome and on her own. Shannon figured it out, and again, the girls grew up healthy and loved, and Shannon remarried a loving man. But for 30 years, she was never allowed to visit her father for Christmas or holidays or birthdays. Cruella died this year. Shannon was invited for Christmas, and her father surprised her by letting her know that he was paying off her mortgage. It could never make up for not being then when she was younger, but it could give her some comfort now that she is retired. When they went to the bank today, she learned where the money came from. It is Cruella's life insurance payout. Cruella would roll over in grave if she knew that her life insurance went to pay off the house of the stepdaughter she wanted to deny existed for nearly her whole life. Say goodbye to your check. Short and sweet. I was waiting in line at the bank. They have you line up outside. Not a problem. This particular day it was a bit windy. Again, not a problem. For me. A guy gets out of his car, check in hand. You know where this is going, huh? The wind whips the check from his hands, and somehow I managed to step on it as it scooted by me. I wasn't really expecting a thank you, to be honest, but what I definitely wasn't expecting was the guy to chew me out for dirtying up his check. Thanks for stepping on my check. The bank probably won't accept it now. Call me an asshole, but I lifted my foot up and let it blow away in the wind down the street and said, well, they definitely won't accept it now. The guy flipped his shit as he was chasing it down the street, and I got called up as next in line. Sorry, not sorry. Insult my intelligence? It's on the record now. I'm a veterinary technician and was doing some work in the reception area. We had a man and his pit bull come in. I'm getting them checked in and I ask what the dog's name is. He tells me the dog's name is Gucci. I ask how he spells it because you can never assume anything these days. He rolls his eyes and says, you don't know how to spell Gucci? Are you an idiot or something? The thing about veterinary medical records are that they are legal documents. They will exist for a certain number of years at least before they are destroyed. For the better part of a decade, I made the record show he arrived that day with a dog named Gucci, since I'm apparently an idiot that can't spell Gucci. Edit. Thank you all for the wonderful stories about your pets. I loved reading them. Shoutouts to the few of you that suggested I should feel deeply ashamed about this and should get fired for it. Neither is going to happen, but at least my therapist will get the chance to work for her exam fee this week. So congratulations. Coming for a vet tech's mental health is basically shooting fish in a barrel, so don't pat yourselves on the back too hard. So I got fired from my job. I had 2 jobs. One was at this country ice house in buttfuck nowhere outside of my city. This place was pretty small, but was one of the few bars in a certain area, so it would get busy. A lot off good old boys and oil field guys. I worked the door, checked IDs and such, and usually broke up fights or kicked people out. The owner of this place was very hands-on. He liked to micromanage everything. Didn't want me to kick people out unless they were throwing punches, and even then to try and talk to them. Never cut anyone off. Had that always be selling attitude. One night some trouble happens between some regulars, and one guy tries to hit another guy with a pool stick. I happened to get hit in the arm but got behind the guy and put him to sleep. Next day the manager calls me to tell me I'm being let go. Apparently pool stick guy spends a lot of money, and me putting him to sleep left him bitter, so he called the owner. That's fine. Anyways, the bar has a nice fancy jukebox. If you have the app, you can just pick songs on your credit card and they'll play. If you hit play next on a song, even if they turn the jukebox off, it'll play when it starts back up. It's also unskippable. With the master remote you could skip a song, but they lost that remote, so they really can't do much if someone plays a certain song they don't like. And even if they unplug it, it'll play no matter what when they turn it on. Here's my petty revenge. The owner does inventory every Tuesday night. It also happens to be a busy night because they do pool tournaments, and it usually gets packed. So here I thought, I could probably just play the same song over and over, and there's nothing they can really do. I got $20 in credits, and that usually gives you about 18 unskippable songs. Plus more depending if the app gives you credits. I picked a remix of Cotton Eye Joe that comes in at around 7 minutes a pop, usually when the pool tournament started. 2 hours of hearing the same song has killed their business on Tuesdays. Even if they unplug it, it'll still play when they plugged it back up. I've been doing it for 2 months so far. Last I heard they had to buy a new jukebox at a cost $5,000. I'll probably stop for a month then start again. I'm an asshole, I guess. Decided to troll an internet scammer, and I think I accidentally hit the jackpot. I got a spam text message, one of the obvious scam lead-ins, asking, hello, is this Jessica's phone? I assumed it was a scam attempt, but to be civil I replied politely that it was not. Got a series of follow-up messages explaining their assistant must have copied the number incorrectly and apologizing for the inconvenience and introducing themselves and asking for my name. At which point I was certain that it was an attempt to scam me. So I said that I would not be providing my name, and they continued to try to engage me in conversation. So I explained who I am, a parent with a child who suffered from a life-threatening illness, and that I had to spend staggering sums of money on her care. And since I had done him no wrong, why was he trying to defraud me of money? I kept coming back to this. Next time you look in the mirror, Make a note that this is what a person looks like who tries to steal money from the parent of a sick child. I figured if there was any humanity there, I might get the chance to live rent-free in their head for a while, or maybe even encourage them to take up a more honorable profession. An hour or more passed, and they came back to me about how I was in the USA and our imperialism was responsible for all the world's problems, etc. At which point I replied that my assumption was that he was in China, and while I might not like how the Chinese government treats the people of Hong Kong, or Tibet, or its Uyghur population, that wouldn't justify my trying to steal from a random person in Shanghai. I sent that, and heard nothing further. I decided to follow up and troll a bit more, and none of the messages went through. Then it dawned on me. I had said Hong Kong, Tibet, and Uyghur in the same sentence to a guy in China. I'm pretty sure that's the trifecta to hit their police state monitoring system. So he might be getting a bit more attention from the local authorities than he was really looking for. I don't know for sure, and I probably never will, but it makes me feel good to know that I may have accidentally done just about the only thing that could cause the guy to get in trouble locally. Confronted in a parking lot because I legally used a handicapped spot, he wound up with DUI, pretty certain. I'm a healthy-looking 55-year-old male but have a degenerative nerve disorder and ataxia, balance issues, so have a very hard time walking. I pull into a handicapped spot at the grocery store, put my placard up, and get myself out of the car. A very angry person about my age runs up to me screaming about how I'm stealing a handicapped spot from someone who needs it. As he went on, I pulled out my walker and started walking to the store as he continued making a scene. As I walked to the store, a cop who just happened to be there asked what happened. I just told him some people don't get it and pointed to my walker and went about my business. About 30 minutes later, I came out of the store and noticed the guy was getting a field sobriety test. I sat in my car and watched as he eventually got arrested. Maybe next time he'll keep his mouth shut. You want to prank call me about my missing dog? Enjoy getting all the telemarketing phone calls, my guy. My dog went missing a couple weeks ago, and I miss her terribly. We've been putting up missing posters with reward money to try to get her back. Yesterday, someone called me from a number I didn't recognize, but with the right area code. I excitedly answered the phone, only to slowly realize I was hearing some very human barking into my phone. I immediately hung up. I was very angry but willing to let it go, until they called again last night. Anyway, this idiot didn't block their number, so now I'm requesting information from colleges, insurance, extended warranties, etc. on their behalf. It's very, very petty, but damn, I think it's fitting.